Do you want to know how good is the Gunslinger in Uber 10? Then I'll tell you. Hello, welcome to another JP video. I'm your host JonNario, and today I'll be talking about the Gunslinger in Uber 10. So, the Gunslinger is a character that is, in my own personal standard, is a pretty mediocre character for Uber 10 grinding. But it's not because it is a character that does low damage, pretty bad momentum, but because actually, no. This character actually has really good crowd control, DPS, momentum, damage output is pretty decent. But there's one little inconvenience about this character, well, two actually. That actually just strays away this character from being a top dungeon grinding character. So let's move on, but before all of that, I need to mention that this is a pre-recorded video. I actually did make this alongside all of the Uber 10 videos that you've seen thus far. All of this has been pre-recorded prior to me just moving away from my home in Puerto Rico. So if you want more information, check out my YouTube community tab, check out on my Discord server. So yeah, that is going to be literally everything. Now let's move on. Now the Gunslinger is a character that has a lot of surprises, but also it is a character that actually has some very little inconvenience that might as well just be the biggest inconvenience of a character in the entire game. Like if they just removed it or they just changed this little nitpick, the Gunslinger could easily be among the top characters in the entire game for dungeon grinding. And I don't mean like in the top 5, but at least above average. But as of right now, the character is below average just because of this little inconvenience. Now, this is a character that you can use it and you can be extremely effective about it. Like, I'm using movement speed equipment on the Gunslinger and the character can work in Uber 10. It's not that it's completely useless, but the character still needs a little bit of a tweakings here and there to make it more effective. Now let's start talking about stats. Here are the stats just in case you're wondering. Just pause the video if you want. Here's my gear. I'm using attack speed, movement speed, all pieces of gear. Normally I would have been using attack speed, critical damage on the Gunslinger, but since I'm using movement speed on every single character for Uber 10 grinding, so I decided to just use attack speed and movement speed. I do have the standard max movement speed equipment with the Gunslinger, which is literally everything that I've been using for all of the characters thus far, so this character is no exception. I do have a Stellarfy Energy Regen ring instead of just using the Magifying ring. The reason being is because I used to use this character for Shadow Tower, so I never actually did change my energy regeneration ring, so I just decided to use this. But you could use either this or just use the Magifying ring. Here are my gems, just in case you're wondering. This character is better for delving, so I use a character for more towards delving instead of just using the character for dungeon grinding. But if you want to use this character for dungeon grinding, then go ahead and use it. You already know what is going to be your equipment, which is just going to be Paradise, Vampire Vanquisher, and Class Gem ability. Those are essential with any character for Uber 10. If you're using the character for delving, then obviously just use Wizard Valor, Class Gem, and something like Paradise or whatever. Like the character, it is going to be better for delving because it has insanely high DPS. So the character, it just works better for those types of content because that is where it's going to be its strong suit. Killing against bosses like in Delves and like Leviathans, for example. But for dungeon grinding, it's still pretty good. Like it is pretty solid for early game. So if you want my first opinion on the character, it is a really strong character for early game because of the really high DPS, good survivability, and all that good stuff. That is why a lot of newer players actually think that the Gunslinger is better than it actually is because of the DPS being so ridiculously high. It is good for early game, but where it truly shines, it may be mid game. So mid game going to be the Gunslinger at its strongest. Now, let's start talking about all of the abilities on the Gunslinger. Starting out with the basic attack. The basic attack on the Gunslinger, it is a single target, 1.4 times damage multiplier. It has a 29 block range and it has a base attacks per second of 2.5. So base attacks per second 2.5, making this the second fastest basic attack in the entire game, behind the Shadow Hunter with the Class Gen. This is faster than literally every single class. This is faster than Draco. Oh, this is faster than Knight. This is faster than everything. At max attack speed, the Gunslinger can attack at 7.5 attacks per second, which there's no character that can attack more than 7 times per second, which except the Shadow Hunter. With every single other character that is on the top in terms of attack speed is 6 or below. So Gunslinger is pretty unique in that regard. So the Gunslinger has a really fast attacks per second at 2.5. Like I just mentioned before, it's single target. It is an alright basic attack. The only problem is that the damage is rather low, and despite being so fast, it still doesn't even matter because damage is low, is single target. So yeah, the basic attack is alright, it's average, I will say. It's not strong, it's not weak, it's just alright at best. So yeah, that's all I gotta say with the basic attack. The basic attack actually does help you out with triggering the lucky shot passive ability, but it is what it is. Now, let's start talking about lucky shot, the passive ability. What it does is whenever you deal damage to an enemy, you have a chance of actually getting a fully charged shot. The chances is around a 20% chance if according to my testing. So just doing damage with any sort of damage, so it can be like empowered gem abilities, it can actually even be bombs, basic attack, blast jump, even just throwing the charge shot itself. Like you can actually just throw down the passive ability, charge shot, hit an enemy, and you can actually have a chance of getting another one, so you can throw two of them. So literally any sort of damage, so anything that you can throw out, it actually has a chance of getting the fully charged shot, so a level 3 charge shot, just without charging, and you can just press the button and just throw in the maximum charge shot. Also, attacking enemy with basic attack will reduce your fall speed, since literally everything in this character is basic attack, like ultimate ability, the charge shot, like literally everything is just tied to the basic attack. So pretty much you can tell that most of the damage on this character is going to reduce your fall speed, and this little thing is going to be your inconvenience. You're going to fall at around 1/3 of the regular fall speed. The inconvenience of this is ridiculous. Like, I'm going to tell you that the inconvenience of this is what actually stirs this character of being on the top, because a lot of the characters, what you want is high momentum. You don't want to lose a lot of your movement speed, and considering that when you're hitting enemies with this basic attack, you are going to stay there in slow falling for, like, I believe it's 2 seconds. Those 2 seconds really do add up. So especially if you're jumping around a whole lot, especially since this is a ranged character, you want to be jumping around a whole lot so you don't get hit a whole lot. You're going to stand there just falling slowly with the Gunslinger. And this is a really big inconvenience with this character. It does help out with survivability, but at the end of the day, it really does hurt this character in terms of momentum. So yeah, that is going to be the first inconvenience on this character, and probably the biggest inconvenience of what makes this character in the below average category. Just this alone, this little thing alone is so big of an inconvenience, you have no idea. Use the Gunslinger and just let me know what you think, because seriously, it is ridiculous. So yeah, that is all I gotta say with the lucky shot. It is a good ability on paper, but the slow falling is just a big oof for dungeon grinding. Now let's start talking about the first ability, charge shot. So what it does is you press the ability button. It's similar, it's going to be exactly the same as the Shadowhunter's Radiant Arrow. So you hold out the ability and you are going to charge one ability, dealing more damage the more time that you hold it down. So at low charge on level 1, if you hold it down for less than a second, it will throw a really small AoE projectile that has a 31 block range. It does 1.5 times damage multiplier, and it has no AoE. It's literally 1.5 times damage multiplier, and that's it. That's all you get. It's so weak, you pretty much never want to throw that one. Then it's going to be the mid charge, or level 2, which is going to be between 1 second and 1.5 seconds. So that's going to be the charge time on the mid charge, or I believe it's 2 seconds. I don't remember like from the top of my head, but usually it's going to be from 1 to 2 seconds in that range. You are going to dish out as a little bit larger projectile, which has a 32 block range. It does 2 times damage multiplier, and it has a small AoE that can do that is a 3x3 that can do, I believe it's going to be 1.5 times damage multiplier. So it is going to dish out a total of 3.5 times damage multiplier if you manage to hit an enemy directly with this ability. So that is going to be how it is. Now, the one that you should be looking for is going to be fully charged. So a full charge shot, which is the one that you actually do get with not only the class gem ability, but you also do get with the passive. It is going to be, if you hold it down for more than the maximum, like it's going to be, I believe, either 1.5 seconds, 1.3, I don't remember how much it is. You are going to dish out an AoE that does 4 times damage multiplier, well, and direct damage that does 4 times damage multiplier on a 5x5 radius. The AoE can do damage as well, similar to most of the projectiles in the entire game, that can do direct damage and AoE damage, and the AoE can do 3.5 times damage multiplier. So if you manage to hit an enemy directly with a fully charged charge shot, it can dish out a max down of 7.5 times damage multiplier. That is really, really high on a 32 block range, and it has AoE, so really, really solid. So, and it will cost 40 energy per cast on no matter the level that you're throwing at. So yeah, again, If you manage to hit an enemy with the basic attack with the Lucky Shot ability, you're going to have the rings on your character without charging up the ability. If you do get those rings on your characters on your gun, you can just press the charge shot and you are going to throw down a maxed out charge shot level 3. So if you have the rings on your gun, make sure to just press the charge shot and you're going to dish out a really hefty damage. Unless you're using the ultimate ability, so you actually don't need to throw down the charge shot if you have the ultimate ability. It is a really solid ability, but only if you have the passive ability active. If you don't have the passive ability active, then this ability is rather meh. Either way, that is going to be everything regarding charge shot. Now let's move on into blast jump. This is going to be technically your main damaging ability if you don't have the ultimate ability active. The main damaging ability is going to be blast jump. What it does is when you press the ability, you're going to shoot down on the ground, hitting all enemies around you, dealing 6 times damage multiplier, which is pretty high. It is above, well, I will say it's around average, but it is pretty high. It will hit all enemies in a 6 block radius. I believe it's a 6 or 5 block radius. It will boost you up in the air for 6 blocks. So you technically are going to jump for 6 blocks. And you're going to get the decreased fall speed for 2 seconds. So you're going to get the fall speed from the passive ability for 2 seconds. Which is another inconvenience with this. Like I just mentioned, this is going to be your main damaging ability. It has really good AoE. It has pretty good damage. And the animation time is going to be half a second, so it's similar going to be like the Revenant, and considering that this ability has no cooldown, you can actually just keep spamming it. And it is going to be literally almost exactly the same as the Ice Crash for Ice Age, because it has a half a second animation startup, with the Ice Age is half a second of cooldown, which is exactly the same. The Ice Age does 6.3, this one does 6. This one I believe has a 5 block radius. The Ice Age Ice Crash I believe has a 7 block radius. And this one will make you better in terms of survivability, because you will be up in the air, versus the Ice Age actually making the enemy slow down. So you can actually compare this to the Ice Age Ice Crash. But the Ice Age Ice Crash only costs 15 energy. This one costs 65. So for the most part you can only throw 2 blast jump. So energy regeneration is very, very effective with this character, so that's why I use it, because blast jump 65 energy is a lot of energy cost. So yeah, that is going to be a really big difference between this one and Ice Crash, because Ice Crash you can actually just keep spamming on the Ice Age. With this one you cannot, even though both characters actually do have energy regeneration on level up. But this character is 65 energy versus 15. It is a lot. It is a lot of difference. And yeah, that's going to be literally everything with Blast Jump. The only inconvenience, like I just mentioned, besides the high energy cost, is going to be the decreased fall speed. This is going to be the ability that you're going to use in Cursed Skulls, because literally it's going to hit all enemies around you. And if you're really high up in the air, it doesn't have a range, so pretty much it has technically infinite range, so you can just shoot from extreme ranges and you're going to hit enemies from the ground. So the ranges is just pretty extreme. I don't know if it has like range, but according to my testing, it's just going to hit all enemies like below you. I need to do more testing on that one, but right now I don't have time to do that, so maybe in the future I'll do more testing. But either way, Blast Jump, pretty solid ability, really good on paper, but the only problem is that decreased fall speed is going to be a big of an inconvenience for dungeon grinding. For delving, it's not that big of an inconvenience, because you can actually do use that for survivability. Anyways, moving on into the ultimate ability, Run and Gun. So Run and Gun, what it does is when you press the ability, you're going to shoot faster, move faster, and you will not lose any movement speed whenever you're shooting with your basic attack. So yeah, the ultimate ability on the Gunslinger is just pretty meh. There's already a subclass that literally does everything that you get from this ultimate ability. So the ultimate ability, normally this is without the class gem, by the way, it actually increases your attack speed by 75%, so 1.75 times your base attack speed, and 20 base to your movement speed, and you do not lose your movement speed at all, so you will be moving at 100%, similar to Ice Age basic attack and to Fate Trickster's basic attack, to be more precise. And yeah, it will last for 10 seconds or a 40-second cooldown, and it will cost 50 energy upon casting, but the 50 energy is not that big of a deal. The big of a deal is going to be that it only grants those 2 stats. So the problem is with the Candy Barbarian subclass, you literally get 2 times your base attack speed and 20 movement speed. Yeah, on a 15-second cooldown, and I do believe it lasts also for 10 seconds. On a 50-50 chance. So yeah, technically the ultimate ability on the Gunslinger is exactly the same or slightly weaker than the subclass from the Candy Barbarian. And the Candy Barbarian subclass, you can use it with this character, or you can use it with any character. Or heck, if you want to use even better, use the Lunar Lancer subclass. You get damage, you get 5 less movement speed, and you still get 100 plus attack speed. That is ridiculous. So 100 plus attack speed is literally more benefit that you're going to get ever with this ability at all. Similar to the Candy Barbarian subclass, I mentioned that it's 2 times, but it's not 2 times, it's 100 base attack speed, which for the most part is more than you're going to get with this ultimate ability in terms of benefits, because if you do have 200 base attack speed, you're going to get 150 attack speed, but if you already have 200 attack speed, the maximum that you're going to get is 100 technically, because you will get 150 with this ultimate ability, but for the most part you're not going to get any benefit because the maximum attack speed is 300. Either way, for the most part, no one cares, so everyone's using the Overcharged class gem ability. If we move on into the Overcharged class gem ability, it will transform the mediocre ultimate ability into a pretty ridiculous ability that could arguably be the best DPS type ability in the entire game, because it lasts for 10 seconds, 40 second cooldown, similar to like the old ultimate ability. Nothing has changed right there. However, you're no longer going to get the attack speed buff, you actually get an attack speed decrease of 25%. This is percentage decrease, this is not minus 25 attack speed, this is 25%. So just take your base attack speed and multiply it by 0.75, and that's going to be your base attack speed after the ultimate ability. So you're going to get a various amounts of decrease in attack speed. So the more attack speed that you have base, the more decrease that you're going to get with this ultimate ability. So it's going to be that big of a difference. However, this also means that this character gains the most benefit from the subclass like the Lunar Lancer and Candy Barbarian, which if you have max attack speed with most of the character, you actually have either 260 or above in terms of attack speed if you have max attack speed. So subclass like the Lunar Lancer and Candy Barbarian actually only gives you a benefit of 40 attack speed. And if you do have Berserk Battler, for the most part you're not going to get any benefit from the Candy Barbarian or the Lunar Lancer subclass, because you will be already shooting at max attack speed. However, with the Gunslinger at max attack speed is going to be around 190 attack speed. So at 190 attack speed, it means that you're going to get the full benefit of 100 plus attack speed with the subclass, meaning that this subclass is going to be very effective with this character with both the Lunar Lancer or the Candy Barbarian. Lunar Lancer is much more consistent, so use that one. Also, aside from the decrease in terms of attack speed, all of your basic attack shot will be transformed into a level 3 charge shot. So pretty much everything that you get from the level 3 charge shot, so the 7.5 times damage multiplier, the 5x5 AoE, 32 block range, yada yada yada, all of those things you are going to get it for the 10-second duration by just holding out the basic attack. And you also get the other benefit like the plus 20 movement speed, and you also don't lose any movement speed with this basic attack, so you can actually just keep holding out the basic attack during the 10-second duration and you're not going to lose any movement speed, which is just really strong. It is extremely powerful, especially for dungeon grinding. This could very well be among the top in terms of momentum, because it does have pretty good damage, it does have range, but again, like I just mentioned multiple times, if you're killing enemies over 15 block range, you're not going to get the ally buff, but even still 30 plus blocking range is just, it is ridiculous, because you're going to be moving so fast. Especially on 5-star dungeon, you definitely are going to notice that you're definitely going to steamroll literally everything in 5-star dungeon. You have no idea. It is super fun. And in low delving, you can actually just use that, hold down that basic attack and just keep destroying everything in this dungeon. Like, it is super effective, and considering that you can actually just use chromatic emblem and just destroy everything in the delves, it's just really fun. But again, not a delve series, Uber 10 series. But I really need to mention that this ability is super solid, and why a lot of people take this character for granted of being one of the best characters in the entire game in general because of the DPS. But this character is really strong. With this ability, just makes this character, this and Blast Jump are two of the greatest ability. But the only problem is the slow falling. This triggers the slow falling if you manage to hit the enemy directly with the basic attack. So it will trigger the slow falling from passive, and if you Like I just mentioned before, it is more of an inconvenience because it is 2 seconds after you stop shooting. Because if you hit the enemy, you will have the float effect for 2 seconds. If you hit the enemy again, the timer will refresh. So you have to stop attacking with your basic attack in order to stop falling with that with the passive ability, in order to actually just keep moving on with the regular movement speed. So it is kind of an inconvenience with the character, but even still, this ability makes the character a lot of fun. But the only problem is that being a 10-second duration only ability, it means that you cannot use it similar to like the Dino Tamer in terms of like full 100% uptime with this, unless you're using max cooldown reduction and spamming flash like crazy. You can try and do that. So, but for the most part, this is not the Dino Tamer in terms of dungeon grinding. Dungeon grinding, Dino Tamer has this character beat because it's literally almost exactly the same as this character. Both characters are gun type characters that relies on ultimate ability, but the Dino Tamer lasts for 24 and this one lasts for 10. This one can dish out higher DPS and have better crowd control than the Dino Tamer, but the Dino Tamer gains much more movement speed and the damage is strong enough that you can already destroy most of the dungeons. So the Dino Tamer already has this character beat in every way, shape or form. But this character is just more of a DPS type character that is better for delving, so that is going to be pretty much everything. Like I just mentioned in the beginning of the video, this character truly shines around mid-game, because DPS is already really high, blast jump starts one-shotting at that point, and for the most part that's where you're going to see this character at its strongest. You can actually just use this character at early game and still do pretty well because the DPS is rather high. So yeah, that is going to be really solid. And also, since this character gains a lot of critical hit by default at 15%, 15 critical hit by default, and plus the critical hit that you do get by level up, this character is one of the first characters that you can actually reach 100%. Actually, the first character that you can actually reach 100% easily, because it does gain a lot more critical hit boost than any character in the entire game. So yeah, that's going to be literally everything for the Gunslinger. Thank you for watching, thank you for sticking around. As always, leave a like if you want to help the channel grow, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and be on the lookout on the next episode, which I'll probably just cover on the Candy Barbarian. And that is all for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Take care and keep on hunting.